So, have you heard about Stop Killing Games? Yeah, isn't that the game that Pirate Software said that would, end live service games as we know it and force MMO makers to keep their servers up for infinity? Yeah, he did say something like that, didn't he? What he didn't tell you, though, because once again, he's wrong, who knew? What it does is it causes developers to have an end-of-life plan for the service in question. So if we use Stop Killing Games' own example of The Crew, for example, what it would do is cause Ubisoft to have an end-of-life plan for it, which it looks like they already did. They just decided to throw it out the window and tell the gamers and people who bought the game that they're, screwed. Because that game has a single-player component to it. It does have a single-player built into it where it can run offline, and instead of removing any and all DMR or DRM that may be involved in the game and swapping over the single-player from the multiplayer bit, they just decided to scuttle it to force people into the new version of The Crew, of course, because money. Well, that's all good and well, but I'd like to see you explain how a traditional MMO gets made into a single-player game. Well, I'm glad you asked, because once again, Final Fantasy XIV from Square Enix has already shown that is indeed something that is possible, and in fact, they've already kind of done that. See, what happens in that game is there's this MSQ, it's the main story quest, right? It's a big thing, you gotta follow it, go through there to unlock things and to do and all that other good stuff, and of course, to progress the story because, the RPG element. The downside is you have to do certain dungeons to progress that story, and as a personal account of my own, I think I waited 45 minutes to get into one of those as a DPS once upon a time, even using their group finder, which does all the heavy lifting for you these days. So what they did a couple of expansions or so ago is they created this thing that allows you to use notable NPCs in the story up to that point to fulfill those roles. So yeah, NPCs running the dungeon with you as you the only human player there. Now, are they perfect? No, they're not as good as an actual player who's playing the game or anything, but they're good enough to get you through the content. So yeah, Square Enix is already on the forefront of turning an MMO into a single-player experience 15 years down the line when Final Fantasy XIV is no longer an MMO. But hey, the petition is actually at 96% as of this morning. They're 22,000 signatures away from actually hitting the 1 million mark, which is great because they got to hit it by the end of the month. So if you're in the EU, go read this, go look into it, go sign it, get your family to sign it, whatever. If you're not in the EU, share it. Make sure somebody in the EU who hasn't signed it gets a chance to take a look and sign.